Welcome to another race, a podcast brought to you by FCA Endurance, where the goal is to unite, equip, and encourage Christian endurance athletes in their mission to see the world change for Christ through their local huddles and across the globe. We exist to inspire each other and to share in each other's victories as well as our defeats, not just in our competitions, but in our walk with Christ. I'm your host, Andy Peterson. Join me as I interview FCA Endurance teammates to get their thoughts and ideas on how they run with endurance to the race set before them. I've been involved in this ministry at the local level for over 10 years and have personally received encouragement from many teammates across the nation. I'd like to see you, the podcast listener and subscriber, to receive the same encouragement. Maybe you want to start your own huddle but don't know where to begin, or maybe you're a believer who wants to get in shape, or run a 5K maybe, or do a sprint triathlon for the first time. Maybe you just want to see the world change for Christ and want to join us in our kingdom building efforts as we press beyond evangelism into discipleship and beyond the race course into all the world. Well, here we are for you, and we hope to touch on all of these issues, questions, and more. And with me today to help me do just that is Barry Edwards. Now, Barry is a triathlete who specializes in the 70.3 distance. Barry has had to overcome some physical challenges in the fairly recent past. I've been following his story on Facebook. He likes to share the blessings of his racing on the FCA Endurance Facebook page. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about so much more in the short time that we have together. So welcome, Barry. And the first question I have for you is, how did you get into triathlon?
Hi, Andy. Great to be here. And so it's a blessing. I love sharing the good news of what's happened in triathlon, this awesome hobby that has become a great ministry opportunity for me. And so I got involved. I did a local sprint, and I started in 2002, actually. I started triathlon, and I went to a little local race in 2005. And, you get your little goodie bag, right? And so I'm digging through the goodie bag, and I get this little card, and it said FCA Endurance. It was like a little postcard. And I was like, FCA Endurance? I know FCA. I was involved with FCA in high school, and so I knew all about it. I was like, endurance? What is this? Yeah. And so I contacted, that kind of material. So I contacted the email, and so I joined as a team member, a teammate. And so long story short, someone reached out, said, hey, welcome. And, we have a national team competing for Christ, and all over the nation. And we do triathlons, and we wear this cool gear, the cool hats like you have on right now, Andy, and the shirts and the racing kits. And so I was like, man, I'm in. And so I got involved, and I'd always been leading a small group Bible study my whole life. And so my wife and I had been doing that. And so they talked about the huddles, doing the kind of athlete focused Bible studies in our home. So we started that. And man, that was a long time ago, and we just never looked back and got really involved, and it's been a fun journey.
So you said that was 2005 when you got involved?
Yes.
Yeah, that's about the time FCA Endurance, I think, came into existence. Isn't that right?
Right. Yes, it was. And Chris Anderson was leading the charge then. And so it might have been 2006. But yeah, that's when I got involved. And then I got involved with the FCA National Board, FCA Endurance National Board. And so, it was great. And we get to talk about the things we were doing, the Iron Prayer events, chapel services before, some of the Ironman events and with Kona and the 70.3 World Championships. So it's been a lot of fun. And we've seen a great impact with FCA Endurance in our local community as well.
Now, I know the impact that you've had on the 70.3 course. Have you also done the long distance?
I have. I've done 6 fulls and twice in Kona. And so that was a great blessing. And we did the Iron Prayer chapel service before the event, those 2 years that I went. And that was really great. Had a great turnout. And we had some good speakers. And so if anyone ever finds himself in Kona and the World Championship, then I'll look up the Iron Prayer event. And it's a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it really is. So 2021 St. George, I was there. You were there. I didn't get a chance to see you. I think you were going too fast. You were just a blur. Mark Long, I saw him, and we kind of chatted things up, and he said Barry's around here somewhere. I'd like to see him as well, but we never did get a chance to see you. So I'm glad to finally catch up with you and chat a little bit. I guess we could talk a little bit about that race, but just how many 70.3 world championships have you been involved in?
I think I've competed in 7 of them. And it's been a great blessing to be involved. And it's just a fun race. 70.3s are a little easier to train for than the full. So I really love focusing on that. I can race those year round. I can race from April 1st to October 31st and just have a great season. I usually do about 5 of them a year. And so the World Championship, I've done 7 of those. And this year in Finland will be my 8th.
Nice. Congratulations. So how many times have you been out to St. George at that course? And I'm talking about that because that's the one that I know.
Oh my gosh, that was tough. Yeah, I did that twice.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it in 21 and 22. And 21, it kind of ate my lunch. And I came back a little stronger for 22 and more prepared mentally and physically. And I did pretty well. And I did like a 4:55, I think, in 2022 on that tough course.
We had a fairly significant weather event that took place in 2021. Were you on the bike course when that took place?
Yes, yeah. The weather came in strong. A little storm, hail, rain, strong wind. Had a disc wheel, almost pushed me over, and I just kept going. I said, "Well, I'll just keep riding until someone tells me to stop."
That's exactly. We were looking at each other. We were on the bike, and we were going towards the mountains, and there were these lightning strikes that were on the other side, and we were just looking at each other, thinking, how crazy are we to continue this race? But that's exactly what we did. Of course, we were doing a lot of praying at the same time. But yeah, no, that's a phenomenal course, and that's quite the track record, Barry. So you probably had a lot of opportunities for ministry on top of like the formal stuff. So Iron Prayer, we had an Iron Prayer in 2021. Chapel services are also phenomenal. How, as far as the Ironman organization is concerned, how are they, as far as accommodations are concerned, with making sure that you guys are able to, you can fold in your ministry into that event? And how does that work out with them?
Well, they kind of just let you do it on your own. They don't really facilitate or assist us in any way, but they won't put it on their event schedule, for instance. However, when they had the New Orleans 70.3, not the World Championship, just one of the local races, I live in New Orleans. And so when we had it here, I know the race director, he had a license to put on the event for Ironman. They don't have a lot of those licenses any longer. But at the time, we had it here for this race. And so I knew the race director. So he let me put it on the event schedule on the website and on the printout. And so we had a little room in the hotel that he let me use for our Iron Prayer chapel service. And that worked out well. For the World Championships, they don't allow that kind of thing. And I've asked in the past, hey, we're having an event. Could you put this a chapel service is what I called it, and let people know that we'll be doing this, 5 o'clock the day before. And they said no. So as you saw, we just pop up a tent. We tell the people that on our database that we're having it, when and where, and we do it that way, separate from Ironman's schedule.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when we're talking about kingdom building. I would love to see it become a natural thing. Like it's no big deal for a chapel service to take place at any event and be part of, not necessarily part of Ironman World, the Ironman World Championships or any kind of race, but the fact that it was a natural thing that as part of God's kingdom and part of the kingdom building initiatives, it just becomes a natural thing. Where is the Ironman? Where's Iron Prayer? Where's the chapel service? And that there are so many Christians that are just organically, through our efforts as believers, to reach out to others through evangelistic efforts, that it almost becomes like the majority of people want to pray before they race. And so this is the kind of impact that I'd like to see FCA endurance athletes have. And you don't have to be an FCA endurance athlete, obviously, to have that kind of an impact, but having us together talking about these things, having these ideas go forth, and encouraging one another is one of the reasons why we have this podcast, and obviously one of the reasons why we have the ministry as a whole. So that's phenomenal. You've obviously had some amazing It was for me. It's kind of funny. So I think the first time I qualified for the World Championships, I emailed Chris. I was so excited. I'm like, has anybody ever qualified for the World Championships before as part of FCA Endurance? And he just started laughing. He's like, oh yeah, it happens all the time. He's like, do you know who Barry Edwards is? So yeah, so that's the first time I got to know your name. But there's a lot of phenomenal athletes. But it's not just about the athletes that finish and can qualify for the World Championships. It's as part of this podcast, I have lined up people who call themselves back of the pack racers, right? You can
Yeah.
have as much of an impact for Christ,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
you finish first or whether you finish last. But as I mentioned last time when I was talking to Lincoln, and if you are excellent at your craft, you are standing before kings. And so you have a bigger platform if you can attract that kind of attention.
Yeah.
So to be ranked where you were ranked, and I'm not sure where you're ranked this year, is, people look at that stuff. People look, they don't
Yeah.
see who is 475th, ranked in the United
Sure.
States or in the world. They look at the top 10. So tell us a little bit about your rankings, how you got there. And then I also want to talk a little bit about your injury, but let us know where you're at right now as far as your
Sure.
fitness is concerned and your, I guess you can call them your accolades in the Ironman World Championships and in the standings.
Absolutely. And you're right. You can make an impact if you're last, if you're second to last, you're in the middle, or if you're first. You're going to make an impact for Christ no matter where you are. And it's because it's all about relationships, just as Jesus taught. It's about building relationships, period. You just connect with people. Well, when people get to know you, then they like you, then they trust you, then you can talk to them about your relationship with the Lord. And so that doesn't matter where you finish. And so for me, I happen to be, some people are great singers. Some people are great at whatever their hobby is, at golf or whatever. God happened to bless me with the ability to swim, bike, and run. And I didn't discover that until I was 37, Andy. I started late bloomer. Played high school football and most American boys. And so I didn't realize I could swim, bike, and run until it was kind of late in the game. But, maybe that was for a reason. And I know it was because God needed me at that time. And so anyway, I just started doing sprints and then Olympics, and then went up to the 70.3, and I would finish 20th in age group, which looking back, it wasn't so bad. And
Yeah, not
then
bad at all.
I was like, man, I'd like to be in the top 10. And I just kept praying about it and use it as a ministry and as a time of worship. We can talk about that later, but when I train, it's just a great time of prayer, especially when I'm running. And so I was able to get in the top 10, and then I broke into the top 5. I was like, oh, that's so great. And so each race, my goal is to be in the top 5 or top 3 in my age group for each race. And lo and behold, after hard work and God's help, and He's allowed me to finish the year ranked worldwide in the top 5, which is like, wow, what a huge blessing and a significant finish. And so in 2019, it's a funny story, Andy. I was my goal in the beginning of 2019 was, God, if it's your will, I want to be able to finish number 1 in the world. I just threw out this big prayer. And, I was just like, I'm just throwing out this big goal. And, you hear about people in business seminars, throw big goals, big, audacious goal. So I prayed that prayer, and I just kind of went on working hard, training hard, using it as a ministry. And at the end of the year, actually in January, when the year rolled over to January 2020, I looked back, so let me see where I finished ranked this year. I didn't track it during the year. I looked, and I was like, what? I had the refresh button like 3 times. What? I was ranked number 1 in the world. I was like, you gotta be kidding. I started calling my wife, Susie, wake up, look at this screen. Let me take a picture of it before something changes. I was ranked number 1. And so how that works is they take your top 3 races and how you finished, and you get points, and that's where you finished. And so I think I had a first and like a second. And so my points happen to be the best in the world for that year for my age group. And so that I was the 55 to 59-year-old, the old man group. And so I was really I was in awe. I was just blown away. And in 2020, I didn't race because of COVID. And then 2021, I was 5th. So there's some fast guys I went to head against. I know these guys now, a guy in Texas and a guy in Florida. I went head to head with them. And man, they beat me soundly on that given day. And so I ended up being fifth ranked in the age group for the world, 2021. And then 2022, I ended up being fourth ranked worldwide, second American.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, yeah, what a great blessing and an honor. But again, hard work,
Yeah.
nutrition, good sleep, and lots of prayers, and it's worship time.
Yeah, it is worship time. And oh gosh, when you just said that, it drew a blank, but obviously that movie, Chariots of Fire, when the runner, I can't remember his name now, he was a pastor.
Yes,
He feels God's blessing when he runs. He feels so.
yes.
That's that kind of a feeling, and it's harder for as I get older, it's harder to achieve that feeling, especially on the run. But it's a blessing to be able to do what we do. I did a track workout today, first one in probably a couple of years, just because it's been beautiful weather up here, and I got a race coming up, and I'm like, and I'm feeling God's pleasure more when I finish every set, but I'm still feeling
Yes.
God's pleasure. And it is a true blessing. And that's phenomenal, Barry. And that is, yeah, that's pretty amazing. And not only that, but like if you pray, and I didn't know that you prayed that prayer, to pray that prayer and then to have that happen to you is like such a boost to your like faith and be like, okay, God, I mean, God's listening. Clearly he's listening, but to have that come true for you, for him to have that, that's not only him listening, but that's having a blessing that none of us deserve, but he gave it to you and you gave him credit and glory for that. And that's a relationship that you have with him. That's just, that solidifies it even that much more,
Amen.
Yeah. So that is super cool. So God's been with you clearly, and you're giving him the glory, obviously. Now there was a time, and we haven't before this, we have not spoken, but I have, because we're part of the same ministry, we kind of cross paths here and there through other people, et cetera, through social media. And at some point in the past, you underwent some sort of like ankle surgery, and I thought you thought that your running was over. And I know that you were still
Yes.
cycling, and I'm looking at your numbers, and I'm like, goodness gracious, he's still flying on the bike, and his swim sets are amazing. But will he ever compete again? It didn't sound like you were going to. And then I saw that you finished a race with pain free. Tell me what happened there.
It was amazing. So I broke my leg snow skiing. It was my fault. It was knee deep powder. And I'm one of these Southern boys that go skiing once a year. And I'm a pretty good skier. And but I was racing my friend, being goofy, and I stopped really hard and fast, and I snapped my tibia and fibia, like above the boot. It snapped. It hinged like this, where it's not supposed to hinge, right in the middle above the boot. Painful, long rehab, and so rehab that. And but what happened? So years later, actually, I decided to take the screws out, and that's what messed it up. That saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So if everything's fine, don't mess with it. So I removed some of the hardware, which was my fault again. It was my mistake, and that caused a change in the biomechanics of the way my leg was being supported. I had two big screws in my ankle and one big screw below my knee. So I have this titanium rod in my leg. Well, it was in there for 12 years, and 12 years later, decided to take the screws out. That was the mistake. And so after that, I tried running again, and that tibia bone was taking more of the pressure than it had been for the previous 12 years. So it totally readapted to this new way of running, and it did not like it. And so the tibia developed micro fractures below my knee, that big bone, and it would not go away. Lots of inflammation, constant pain. I couldn't walk. I tried everything out with 6 orthopedics. And finally we were like, you know what? Let's put the screws back in. And the orthopedic's like, yeah, we never do that, but I think that we should try that. Because I did a year and a half of trying to rehab after taking the screws out. A year and a half, no running. It was so frustrating. I even took a break from swimming, took a break from cycling. All right, and definitely didn't run for that whole year and a half. It just never went away, Andy. So put the screws back in, and then had another year and a half of it took another year and a half. So it took 3 years off of racing. And yeah, I was able to bike and swim during that time. But so that was December 2015. I had the screws out. So my first race back was May 2019. So it was like 3.5 years off of no racing. And so it was such a huge gift just, they say you don't miss something until you don't have it. Well, that's what happened with me. It was taken away, and it was a lot of growth time spiritually during that time and everything. But God gave it back. It's almost like, like the prodigal son kind of, coming back. It was like, oh, wow, let's celebrate. So I raced in May of 2019, and I limped a lot, but I was able to finish the race. And I didn't worry about my watch. So the different perspective, and he's like, my old way of performance based racing and training was out the window. I just participated because it was worship time. It was a great time to be with the Lord, and it was something I loved to do, and it was ministry. So I finished the race. I promised I did not look at my watch. I didn't look at the clock when I finished. I just finished. And I was so grateful. I felt strong. I was limping during the run. And this was Lubbock, 70.3 Lubbock in June of 2019. And I just kind of randomly signed up 9 days before the race. And I just went and did it. And so, because my leg was feeling good enough. Wow. And I'd run 6 mile, then I did 8 miles, and then I did 10. I was like, if I could do that, I guess I could do 13. Let me sign up. So I signed up for this race, and I did it, having only done like a 6 mile or 8 mile or a 10 miler. And I went and did it. And I fit. So, and it was super, super hot. Now I went and got an IV because I was like, dehydrated. And I didn't look at my watch. I came back out like 45 minutes later. My wife said, do you want to know how you finished? I was like, sure. She goes, you won your age group. And I was like, oh my God. I started crying. And I was just in awe of the grace of God and his goodness of giving me this gift. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. I looked at my watch and I did a 4:42. I was like, what? How did I do that? I was just blown away by the goodness of God. I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And I qualified for the World Championship. Like the World Championships in two months in France. I guess we got to book a flight. And wow. So it was such a huge thing, and I was, again, 2019. So we went to France in August of that year. And again, I was just so blown away, so thankful. And that was the comeback story of a setback. So if anyone's having a setback, I had 3.5 years of no racing, no running. God can restore. He will. And I was just praying, God, I would just like to run again pain-free. Even if I don't race, I just want to go run and spend time with you and time in prayer when I'm running pain-free. And a lot of prayer, and he gave it to me.
Yeah, he not only gave it to you, but your cup overflowed, and the discussion about your your different perspective. Another guy that I want to interview, his name is Troy. In our back and forth emails, he was talking about how he was just, he was so tired of running, biking, and swimming. And then he decided, he can do this for the Lord. He can do this as, just to glorify and spend time with Christ. Yeah. And it's kind of like he spent so much time doing this kind of stuff that you probably should be doing it with God, because we're supposed to be doing everything with God. And when you're training for 20 hours a week or thereabouts, you definitely don't want to leave God out of anything with that significant amount of time, effort, and passion. So yeah, so you went from running really well, and then having that all go away for 3.5 years, and then coming back and not only competing with a limp, pain-free with a limp. I'm not really sure how that works. But that's awesome. And then winning the age group, and 442. If you guys, I don't know if you guys 442, is that what you said?
Yes.
That is regardless of the course, Lubbock might be pancake flat. I don't know, but that is extremely. I mean, that's a great time, and yeah, phenomenal. I mean, I'm just trying to come up with the number. So your run was probably, what was it? Was it 7?
Well, I did like a 7:52 average run. Okay. And that was a struggle and painful and limpy, but it was 99 degrees. Oh. So it was a dry, hot, but my swimming bike was strong. It was a little hilly on the bike, but yeah, that was just a blessing.
Yeah, and you can't compare one race to another. You can't compare Lubbock at 98 degrees with where you train or where you compete in the mountains. It's just not the same. But every course is a challenge, and to have the Lord with you is a blessing. So that's pretty phenomenal. So yeah, so that's wonderful. So going back to okay, so we've learned about what you've done through your competitions. We've learned how you got involved with FCA. I know that you're part of a Bible study. You might even, in fact, I know you facilitate the online portion of it. Tell me a little bit about how you became a believer, and it doesn't have to be like this magnificent like conversion story, okay?
Right.
But at the same time, it's always interesting and encouraging for others who may be listening to this podcast who don't even understand what happens when you become a believer. What do is it something that just comes upon you? Is it a conscious decision you make? How did it happen for you?
Well, for me, it was one of those stories where I grew up in church. So my mom and dad were Christians, and they grew up in they were part of a non-denominational church here in New Orleans. And it was, so I was born and raised in a great church, a great youth group, great Sunday school. And, when I was a kid, elementary school, and then the youth group, and had all my friends, went to public school my whole life. And I didn't go to like some private schools or Christian school or anything, just public schools, all 12 years. And then, so my youth group was my good friends, my base of believers. So I was always committed to the Lord, and that all those years. And so that was my story. I had no big conversion.
Yeah.
And but the amazing thing behind it was that my when my mom was pregnant with me, she found out she had cancer. She had breast cancer.
Mm.
And this is back in the 60s. And the doctor said, we need to start treatment immediately with you. You need to terminate the pregnancy, have an abortion, and we need to save your life. And let's not focus on the baby, save your life. And she said, and she had just become a believer a few years before. She goes, no, I feel that God has something special for this child, and I don't want to have an abortion. I'm going to forego treatment and take the risk, and I'm going to have the baby. And so she sacrificed her life for mine, and she died 5 years later, but she had me. She made that choice. And it was the cancer, before I was born, the cancer was really like the thing that brought my dad to the Lord through this tragedy. But through her salvation and my dad's salvation, he was a strong leader, kind of a person, like a John Wayne, just a quiet, strong leader. And, maybe 100 family members came to Christ as a result of them coming to the Lord. So it was a huge thing in my life. And it was a devastating, to get through, obviously, for me and my 3 siblings. But God brought us through, sustained us through that hard time of losing my mom, and that was the heritage that I had, being born in church, and just thank God for it.
I'm literally biting my tongue to try to keep from crying on video. I mean, that's amazing. It's like almost like a story. So, or like a movie, about the impact that one person can have with one decision. Pretty wild.
It's hard to tell that story without breaking down. I usually break down. I'll do a little better.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. Is your father still alive? It sounds like he might have passed
He
too.
passed away in 08, but he was a strong man of God and just loved by many, many, and strong in the church. So
yeah, sounds like you're following in his footsteps.
Doing my best, serving the Lord with all I have, and that's why I love this sport and this hobby. It became a ministry for me, Andy. And so I joined a local triathlon group, and the team was named Hard Ink, and they were very edgy, black and white, cross and skull bones. And I joined the team, and I just felt like this is my ministry. And so I went in there, just loving on people, being their friend, training with them, racing with them, and slowly brought several of my good friends to the Lord through that. They started coming to my huddle, my FCA huddle, and they didn't want to come to church first, but they would come to my house. And because they knew me, they liked me, they trusted me, they'd come to my house, and they came to the Lord. They got water baptized, they committed their life to the Lord, got all in church. So it's been a great ministry.
Jeez.
Doing this sport. So it's been so much fun. So I encourage people to join the local team. Sure, we race for FCA Endurance, but a training race with my local friends as well. And man, it's just been a great opportunity to use that tool as a ministry place.
Yeah. Well, praise God, man. You are doing it right. And that is amazing advice for anybody who wants to also follow in your footsteps, Barry. It's clearly uh, um, a ministry opportunity to do exactly what it is you've done. Anybody who's out there doing trainings probably has a local triathlon community running club, whatever it is that they can be impactful to. And then from there, you're looking for people who are looking for you, right? You are wearing the
Yeah.
kit. They know what you stand for. They know on what foundation your principles lie, and this guy's different. What's about him? And then you invite them to do something, partake in something with you, whether it be church or a Bible study or just hanging out. So that really is phenomenal. And Barry, this time really has flown by. I feel like there's so much more that we can talk about.
Sure.
Is there any? I just followed you on FCA Endurance for some reason, or on Strava through the FCA Endurance group that is on Strava. I didn't realize that you. I don't know. I didn't realize I wasn't following you. Is there any other place where people can
Yes,
find you?
yes, Strava would be a great place. You can see my workouts, and I don't hide anything. I show my heart rate, my power. I know a lot of people hide stuff, so there's no hiding anything. Just go out there and train hard, and I
Yeah,
got guided by the Holy Spirit when you
yeah,
train workouts. And then, but Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's Try Barry, TRI_Barry. Facebook, Barry Edwards. I know there's a lot of Barry Edwards, but
yeah,
picture me and my wife in New Orleans. And so those are the ways. But I welcome people to follow me on Strava. That's fine. And one quick tip, Andy, was I think if you want to get faster, guys, I think one good way is swim with swimmers, run with runners, cycle with cyclists. And that's helped me. I've done that. A lot of people don't like to do it that way. Most triathletes do not do that. Even my local friends, some of the good local triathlete friends here. But I've done that over the years. And here's another reason why. That's 3 different groups that you can develop friendships and relationships with. And that's more opportunity to lead people to Christ. And that's why I do it. And oh, by the way, it happened to get me faster.
yeah.
Because I'm doing stuff in the swim sets. Like, are you kidding me? So that's just a really good tip that can help you get faster. But open the door for relationships.
Yeah, wonderful. I love your heart, Barry. You've done some really tremendous stuff in your life, and you've got a lot more to give, I am sure. Just every day, just doing the grind, whether it's running or swimming or biking or just living your life for Christ. It's amazing. Thank you for being with me, Barry. This has been a tremendous blessing to me.
Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Andy.
All right, we'll see you, man.
God bless.